The Hannan Building, now owned by the Bothell Masonic Lodge, on 101st Avenue Northeast and Main Street, holds within its walls over 100 years of Bothell history. Purchased in the late 1800s, the original wood building held a mercantile, newspaper, and post office, and the subsequent brick building has held everything from a drugstore to council meetings to a dentist's office to the Hillcrest Bakery. William H. Hannan was born in Pennsylvania in 1853 and came to Bothell in 1889. When he first arrived in Bothell, he did carpentry and worked in logging camps. In 1890, he bought a lot on Main Street from D.C. Bothell, where in 1893 he built the house that he and his family lived in until they died. Tax records show that in 1910 the total house value was $610, and that W.A. Hannan's property tax bill was $19.46. That house was eventually moved to the park at Bothell Landing and is now home to the Bothell Historic Museum. Shortly after the 1893 Depression, Hannan purchased the two-story building on Main Street, now known as the Hannan Building. On the ground floor, he operated a general store, selling items like groceries, dried goods, hardware, and boots. The upper floor was used for meetings. The post office operated out of the store from 1894 to 1898, during the administration of President Grover Cleveland. Bothell's first newspaper, the Bothell Independent, was published in an upstairs room beginning in 1903. After the fire of 1908 burned the wood frame building, W.A. Hannan built in its place the first brick structure in Bothell, known as Hannan Block. Later, he opened a store in the corner portion and named it Hannan Mercantile. Once a week, ice cream was sent out from Seattle after the stage system was started. W.A. Hannan sold the building a few years after the brick building was constructed and instead focused on his efforts on raising strawberries and raspberries. Harlan Rupp opened a drugstore in the adjoining storefront. The second floor provided space for the first professional offices in the city, including Bothell's first woman dentist, Dr. Emma Bothell. There was a meat market in the building, operated by Clark Ross from 1918 to 1919, followed by Mrs. Morrison's restaurant until the 1930s. It was also home to the first Bothell City Council meeting. For many years, Crawford's Rexall Drug Store occupied the corner site, followed by a camera store. Hillcrest Bakery also occupied the site from 1934 to 1949. This structure is much the same building, with some facade and doorway changes. Many of the details have been plastered over and original architectural elements removed or covered. The entire structure is owned by the Bothell Masons Ashlar Lodge No. 121, which occupies the second floor. The ground floor is primarily occupied by retail establishments. For additional information about historical landmarks in the city of Bothell or to get involved in the Landmark Preservation Board, contact Bothell's Community Development Department at 425-486-8152 or at the email address on your screen.